Hey, I'm Tanya H. Franklin, and welcome to Tricks My Dog Taught Me, a podcast for lighthearted and occasional deep conversations with family and friends, revolving around my journey as a dog mom to my little guy, Zach the Toy Poodle, which prompted me to self-publish my first book. Shit My Dog Taught Me, where I share some of my insights through poetry and weekly life lessons. So for today's episode, I invited my younger cousin, Katrina Watzer, who lives on the other side of Pennsylvania in the Pittsburgh area. So we don't get to see each other as much in person. So that makes this episode that much more special. So today, week 13's poem, You Barking at Me? That's going to be the basis for our conversation, and I'm excited to get your insight, Trina. So before we get into that, I want to share the poem with you and our listeners, just to give you some context. You barking at me? You bark? Is it at me? Discern when to ignore, friends or foes. Don't engage or just bark back. And so for various reasons, dogs might bark. It could be because it's something they observed. I know that when Zach hears another dog barking in the distance, that he'll start barking. And, maybe they're communicating with each other, or maybe they're arguing about something. I don't know.
Mhm.
And Zach's just trying to get the last word in. But it made me think about how humans operate. Sometimes when we hear someone barking or I guess raising their voice or being confrontational, we have to consider first if it's towards us, and then second, how are we going to respond or react to that? And so I'm not one who seeks out confrontation, and I have had many experiences as a kid and an adult in my home life, work, social life, being confronted. So I remember dealing with confrontation from my sister and definitely the bullies when I was in grade school and middle school. So I'm wondering, have you ever experienced a person being confrontational with you?
Yes, I've experienced a lot of confrontation in school, um, and also in the workplace.
Mm,
Confrontation in school is basically your typical neighbor or your typical person that thinks they are better than you because they're either flashy or have something that you don't have. Confrontation pretty much provokes the other person, and I didn't like that as a kid. When I was a kid, I got provoked a lot, so I became the
mm,
quiet one and more observant as to what was going on in my surroundings. So when I started to observe and see how other people would take on to intimidating another peer in school, I kind of watched how that would, you know, red flag me down the road.
mm.
I got confrontation with my sister would typically do something and I had to get into the mix. So being in school with my sister, it was like, you kinda wanted to, steer away from what she was dealing with, but you want to also keep an eye as well as to whom is surrounded and who is provoking the confrontation at that moment.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
I've dealt with confrontation as a child, and I dealt with confrontation as an adult in workload and dealing with somebody that has issues and either had a bad day. When they had a bad day, it was a lot of, okay, let's see how I can, maneuver this person or make this other person have a bad day as well. Confrontation in the workplace is something that I truly wished didn't happen. You would think a lot of people are a little bit older and had that right frame of mind as to not bring your issues to work, but some does. So
mhm.
for me, to avoid confrontation is I just stay away from the issues as much as I can. I don't engage into the confrontation because I don't want for someone to feel like I'm a part of the situation when
Mm,
it could be a problem that could be resolved as well.
We have that in common. Definitely, because
We
I
do.
I I try to avoid it as much as possible. And I know that at
Mhm.
some point the
Mhm.
confrontation will find me.
Right.
But like you said, if it involves people that I know, what I try to
Mhm.
do is stay one step ahead of it. So, for
Mhm.
instance, if we know people in our lives, whether they are family or
Mm.
friends of friends who they might just have a confrontational way that they do things, and you
Right.
know that they have a contentious nature. So you might say, okay, I'm going to, at least for me, I'll try to avoid certain subject matters that I think are going to set them off. And
Mhm.
I mean, granted, I know I shouldn't have to walk around on eggshells, but I would rather put my energy into something that matters to me and not
Right.
argue or get myself all flustered by someone.
Mhm.
And so definitely that's something that I think about often, and how can I avoid it? So I'm wondering, so when you do have someone confronting you, how do you handle confrontation when there is no avoiding it?
I handle it to the best of my ability. I try to
Mm,
not get argumentative, angered. I try to keep as much as stress level down as much as I can because
mhm,
that person that may bring the confrontation to me is trying to see how I'm going to react to the situation, how I'm going to react to the response. And if I don't give a reaction, they're not going to get what the outcome that they're expecting for it to be. So that's how I basically benefit from not getting confrontational, along with avoiding confrontation. That helps a lot.
mm. You know what? It does. I will say, however, sometimes, at least for me, when I don't rise to the level they are, where they're
Mhm.
going from 0 to 100, it gets them
Mhm.
very upset that I'm not
Yes.
being confrontational back. So it's
Right.
weird because I'm not being confrontational back, and it makes them get angrier.
Mhm.
Why aren't you yelling back? So,
Right.
I
Right.
mean, it's tricky for me sometimes because it's like when it involves people I know, that's one thing, but when it involves people I don't know,
Mhm.
for me, that's a slippery slope because I I don't want any fights breaking out. I've never fought ever in my entire life. I've never been in a physical fight before, and except for sparring, like doing kickboxing or something.
Right.
But it's it's for me, if what I perceive as a threat presents itself and this person is clearly an aggressor, what
Mhm.
I try to do is I let them keep barking or keep yelling or whatever they're doing, and I try to walk away,
Yes.
because I don't have a clear sense of what their mind frame is. And these days, you
Mhm.
never know, right? So to you
No.
keep that analogy going, like that dog analogy going, if they start growling and showing teeth, I don't know what set them off either, because sometimes people get angry and you're like, I don't even know what set them off, right? I'll never
Right.
forget one time I'm waiting, I'm in my car, I'm driving, I'm
Mhm.
waiting at I'm waiting at the corner, it's a red light, and the there's a sign that says no turn on red. Person
Mhm.
behind me is laying on the horn, and I can see they're pointing like, why aren't I'm just imagining them saying, "Why aren't you
Right.
going? What's the matter with you?" And so I just pointed to the sign like saying, "Hey, it's no
Mhm.
turn on red." Person gets out of their vehicle.
Mm.
This has only happened to me once in my life. They get out of their vehicle to come up to my car. And I'm
Mhm.
like, it was a summer day. I rolled my windows up, like, listen, and I just act like I didn't even
See,
hear them. And I'm like,
yeah.
I'm doing one of these, and they're yelling at me. And I'm like, I'm like, I'm not getting, I mean, I didn't say anything. And it's not a matter of me saying, hey, I'm going to be a punk in this moment. But I'm like, if they're that bold and that confrontational to get out of their vehicle and come up to mine, I don't want to take any chances with this person because
Right.
of that. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, well, they can go around if they are that intent on going and they wanna break the traffic rule, then by all means, go around. But I'm wondering how do you handle it when it's that level, or maybe it hasn't been to that level, but when you're confronted by someone who you don't necessarily know, do you react the same way as if it might be your sister, it might be someone at work?
So typically, when I'm in a confrontational situation, it goes to levels, as you mentioned. There could be a level where someone misunderstood or someone just had not understood the material as such, and their language is aggressive. Their tone is massive. Their body language is what you want to do type of thing.
Mhm.
And I choose to not be reacting to how their body language is, but I listen first before I respond and then engage and say, well, you know what? It seems like you're a little upset with the situation. I apologize. If there's something further that I can do to help you, cool. But if it gets too violent, whereas I have to take extra precautionary measures when it becomes to violence, I would try to de-escalate the violence before it gets to being
Mhm.
someone being hurt. When that is being said, for instance, when you were in a car and someone came up to you and you pointed to the sign that says, no turning on red, for me, my precautionary measures is I have my kids in the car. So if that
Mhm.
situation happened to me, if somebody is real irate to pass or for me to turn onto a red light and it says don't turn on red and you're coming up to my car, for me, I'm looking at it as a safety issue. Now you're approaching my car with my children in the car. So for me, I don't roll my windows down. I don't step out the car to engage further into that person's issue. Me, I would typically drive off. But if you're doing damage to my car, I'm physically now calling the police. And I'm making sure that my kids is safe or in the back trunk so that way nothing happens. At this point, I'm watching my surroundings just to make sure nobody's hitting my car, damaging my car, or striking anything to the windows to hurt my children inside of the car. Now, if that normally takes place, then now you have my attention. Then at this point, I want to make sure that everything is okay with my kids. And then I said, well, what's the problem? What's going on? Sometimes you have to get into defense mode.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, I've been in so many fights. I'm not
I
perfect.
know you have.
I'm not perfect. I have been called Tyson so many times, it's not even funny. But our parents was basically like, if someone hits your sister, you better make sure you're there to hit them back. And I said, well, I'm not putting myself in that situation if she has something to do with it. But I had to be the protector when our parents were not available. So,
Mhm.
sight unseen, if one person sees eyes, make sure you protect. So once the information was taken care of, once the person was taken care of, and once everything in that heat of the moment was de-escalated, the other party may say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I was out of line. I'm sorry
Mhm.
that I misunderstood. I'm sorry that I came at you that way. And that's when you hear other people's aspects of, well, this took place around this time and I was so upset, so much going on throughout that day that I just took my frustrations out on you and I apologize. Okay, thank you. Because you don't know what happened to that person throughout the day for them to get to that point. And by you acting the way they are in the midst of that moment, you could hurt yourself. You can be stressing yourself out. So I choose to not be violent as I gotten older. And I choose to listen to the situation or most of the time ignore the situation because it'll plan itself out down the road.
Mhm. Definitely, definitely. And I mean, I like that you pointed that out because for me, I think about how people even identify themselves. Like you might say passive, assertive, or aggressive, or maybe even some combination depending on the scenario. Like even us talking about that car one. I mean, I would say for me in childhood, I was probably more passive than assertive and certainly not aggressive. But in
Mhm.
adulthood, I would say I'm predominantly assertive, but
Mhm.
occasionally I might revert to being passive depending on the scenario.
Mhm.
But you bringing up your children, it made me think about how when it comes to my daughter,
Mhm.
I can be very aggressive. And when I say very
Mhm.
aggressive, I don't mean it in a confrontational way. I mean it more so I'm defending her in some capacity, or I
Right.
see that there's a threat or harm could potentially be done, and then I go into mama bear mode. So I'm wondering,
Mhm.
how do you label yourself?
Well, my kids are a challenge.
Yeah.
And I humble myself with knowing that they're okay. I know when there's issues at school, I try to make sure that they understand to not engage in situations at school where it could potentially get them in trouble. Um, with that being said, when they engage into a situation that can possibly get them suspended or have them be in detention, you kind of guide your kids to now understand, well, this is what happened, how it happened. Why did you get to that level? What did we learn from the situation? So I try to speak to them to have them understand you don't do certain things at school. If you're not doing that at home, why do it in another place? Why
Mhm.
not follow directions when you have another adult that's there present? If you're not doing that with me, why are you doing it while I'm not there? A lot of kids feel as though that's an open way of, okay, my mom is not here, or my dad is not here. I can do whatever I want and not get in trouble. No, no. Other adults see that. Other adults know and engage with us parents from school to say, okay, I know your mom and dad is not going for that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Don't do this. Or, I'm going to give you one, two, three chances. But after that fourth chance, then I'm going to have to call your mom. I try to let my kids know you are a reflection of me and your dad.
Yes.
And when you do things of nature that you know that you're not supposed to, there's consequences with that. You may
Mhm.
not get something from the store, or you may not want to go to the trampoline place that you were so waiting for the whole weekend, but you acted up throughout the week. You have opportunities to change, but then you kept on progressing to that nature of aggression, assertiveness, confrontation. You don't want to keep doing that if you want something. But when I
Mhm.
get a report from the school saying that you were bad, and then I ask you when you come home, hey, hon, how was your day? Oh, it was good, mom. So why did the teacher tell me? you know, so we already know the report prior before our children come home. And when we give the child that extra boost, oh, say, hey, could you tell me how today was? And then they say, oh, it was great, mom. But then I got, a different side of what it was. I'm giving you that opportunity to tell me before I basically say, okay, well, why did you do it? What was the reason? Why couldn't you tell me
Mhm.
the truth? And then later when I mention that, now you wanna tell me the truth. It's too late. It's
Yeah.
too late.
Yeah.
So,
Mm, mm.
you kinda give them that chance to give it to you right before you say, "This is what happened," but they don't feel as though, "Well, I don't think my teacher called. I don't think she might have called and told my mom what happened today." No, but I
Mhm.
got that call right after you transitioned to the next class."
Mm.
I try to instill in the boys is to be mindful what you do outside of home. You are a reflection of your parents, you are a reflection of this home. And when you do something out of line, it is a reflection of how we are raising you. So keep in mind that when you leave from this place, you have to understand and be rational about your decisions because your decisions can either hinder you or make it perfect. So
Mhm.
it's either you want to be good all week and I don't get a bad report, or you want to be bad all week and I'm gonna get a report. But I'm not going to balance out the good with the bad neither. So you're gonna have to pay them consequences, or I can reward you. It's your choice as a child,
Mhm.
and we've all had that as a kid. I know as many times I've gotten in trouble, and at that point I was in trouble a lot. I had to stay with the grandparents, and I couldn't go
Mm.
out on a field trip as bad as I wanted to, I acted up and it was taken away from me in a snap of a hand. So it I'm trying to raise my children to understand, be mindful of what you do when you step out.
That's wonderful because I know I definitely try to instill that in Quinn as well. I think the tricky
Mhm.
part, however, is that when we think about some people just have a natural aggression about them. And
Mhm.
you mentioned before how you wouldn't expect to see it in the workplace like when you were younger. But the reality is that these people, when they were younger, they will eventually become adults. So aggressive when they're younger if they aren't having certain values instilled in them. And I'm not saying aggression is totally bad. I don't want to give that impression, but I think there's a time and place. And for me, if you're aggressive when you're younger and it's not addressed and you're not being told, in this circumstance, it may not be appropriate. How can we handle this in a way where you're just being assertive as opposed to aggressive? Then we're going to be dealing with that when they get older as well. And so I'm thinking like with aggression, not necessarily confrontation, because I think that's a little bit different
Mhm.
because confrontation's more of when it escalates to another level. How do
Right.
you handle or react to a person who's just being aggressive with you or, whether it's someone that you know or even someone that you care about?
With aggression, it depends on how the person's temperament can be.
Mhm.
You have levels to temperament. I know with my aggression when I was a kid, it was wild. It was wild. And when I was able to calm that aggression down, it took a lot for me. And when I try to make sure that my kids don't get super aggressive, I try to let them know when you get aggressive to the point, it's not going to change my decision. It's not going to make me go ahead and say, okay, this is what you're going to have. Okay, this is going to be done because you're that upset that I didn't give it to you in the first place. I'm going to just go ahead. No. If you give a child something, what they want, because they're that aggressive towards you, then that's how they're gonna feel like they're gonna do when they get older, to manipulate somebody to get that to them because their aggression is so strong. But it may just be to your parents. It may just be my kid is aggressive towards me because I didn't give them something. It may be different to someone else. Who knows? But if they didn't know how someone else can be when they don't get anything from their teacher, let's put it that way, from their teacher, and they're getting so worked up, they're yelling, they're punching things, they're destroying the classroom, and this teacher still didn't give them anything. They didn't give in and throw in the towel and say, "Hey, Imma just give it to you." Because now, once the aggression starts to de-escalate because they're not getting what they're wanting, at this point, it's just like, "Well, I lost. I'm giving up now." And then now you have to clean up the room because you messed up the teacher's room, because you
Mhm.
destroyed this person's stuff in a classroom based on what you did not receive. This was the outcome. You still didn't get it, but you still have to fix up what you messed up. And that's how I take it is with me. When I tell my kids to clean up the house, I'm not taking you to Dave and Buster's and you destroy the house. Well, we're definitely not going.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm not rewarding you. You can sit up here and have a lash out all day, but them keys to the car is not moving. I'm not opening my door, and the money that I had that I was going to have a fun day with you is going to a bill or is going to go to something else because I don't have to give in or throw in the towel and say, okay, you win because you're that up here. You're that upset with me. You're that pissed off where to the point where I have to give it to you. No, I don't have to give you something because you're that mad. And that's not just with children. That's also with adults as well, even with managers. "Oh, I expected you
Mhm.
to do this." Well, wait a minute. You said we had a deadline here, but you wanted to push it back this time frame, and then now this is a priority. Well, that's not what you stated. And then that manager's attitude starts to progress, and then they take it up to a pit, or they put you on a production. That's not going to fly here. This is what you stated to me first. This is what you stated to me during the process, and this is what you said it at the end. If it's not consistent and for a manager standpoint, the aggression gets higher, I'm concerned. And in the workplace, I'm concerned
Mhm.
versus me being concerned with my kids because they're my kids. I can handle their aggression at home, but I cannot handle somebody else's aggression outside of my home in a workplace. I feel if you're that aggressive towards me that I didn't have something completed in a timely frame, whereas you told me one thing and didn't tell me another, I think there's an issue. And I can't sit up here and resolve your issue, but I know for a fact, and I'm not going to match the energy with you because you're up here. I still need my job at the end of the
Mhm.
day. I still have to take
Mhm.
care of the kids at the end of the day. And if I stoop to that person's level, she's not going to get fired. I might get released because how I carried my actions to this person's action. And I don't want to be that way. So, how I keep content with not being aggressive to the other aggressor is to not give in. That's the key thing. Don't give in. Just say, "Okay, all right, you have it. I'll do it this way." Sometimes being at a minimal kills them. It's almost basically like with my kids. I kill them with kindness. If I
Mhm.
don't give
Yes.
it to you, Imma kill you with kindness. And that's how it
Yes.
has to be. But if you get so hoorah-rah with this person and yes, you said this, and I'll say this right back at you. Imma hurt your feelings like you're hurting mine. What resolution did you resolve? None. So I choose to be okay, calm, walk away, de-escalate, yell somewhere else where no one can't hear me, but at least I got my frustration out and it's not on someone. And that's the whole thing. It's not on someone else.
I love that you said that because I think even in the idea of saying, I'm going to take this to another room and get that frustration out. And there are times when we might need to be vocal towards that person, but more of an assertive way necessarily. But you can't take it back once it's out there, especially if we're talking about
Mhm.
your job. So the idea of
Right.
saying, I'm going to get it out some way, but
Right.
not on this person necessarily. I mean, I know for me, I tend to get physically quiet,
Mhm.
but the chatter in my head is nonstop. It's like, I'm wondering, why is this person being aggressive towards me?
Mhm.
And if it's truly an issue with me or if it's about them. Like you were
Mhm.
saying earlier about how sometimes maybe this person was just having a bad day and now their level of aggression has heightened and they're putting that on me. And
Mhm.
that doesn't justify it, but I still try to keep that in mind if that might be the issue. I know when I was younger, I used to think that if I could please a person in some
Mhm.
capacity that I would be able and not to make it clear, not going against my values or anything, but if I could please them, that would diffuse the situation or make them stop being aggressive.
Mhm.
But I have to tell you, more times than not, that just made them more aggressive.
Mhm.
And this certainly was the case when we were younger. And when I say we, my sister and I, 18 months apart, and she's older,
Mhm.
and she could be quite aggressive. And I
Mhm.
know that I would get quiet and I wouldn't engage. And I'm telling my story, she may have a different version, but she would get so angry with me. She would get so angry with me because I
Mhm.
was not engaging in her being aggressive towards me. I'm glad that we are not at that place any longer, but not even just with her, but bullies in school. And I'm thinking, oh,
Mhm.
like I said, to please them. Uh,
Mhm.
this is before the days of digital.
Right.
So
Right.
I'll burn you a CD. I'll do like, oh, because I had all the music. I'm like, what you
Right.
mean? That didn't help. Like they
Nope.
take it and then
Mhm.
we're back to bullying. so
Right.
so it didn't help. So I find that, sometimes we have that aggressor and that person who just seems to be defensive.
Mhm.
in like whatever you say, they're in opposition. And so
Right.
I'm wondering, have you ever had encounters with defensive people, and how do you handle those type people? Because there is, it's a different type of bark with defensive people. Like you can't say anything nice. You can be like, "Ooh, you got your hair done." What you mean by that? And you're like, "I just was saying you got your hair
Right.
done."
Oh, man, I've encountered quite a few defensive people. I know myself, I can be in defense.
Mm,
And when I'm in defense, that's a very argumentative task because if I know I didn't do something that you're accusing me of, I'm going to be in defense. Um, that's with people that knows that, they're what they're doing to the extent that they need to do it as such. Nobody wants to be accused. So
mhm,
when you put that defensive hat on, you're going to defend yourself. Me, however, when I was younger, I've always was defensive. I always got blamed. I was always accused. And I always had to tell the truth, defend myself, show probable cause on what happened when I was a kid. And it opened my eyes as an adult with other people that I'm dealing with of how defensive they can be. And that can be either in law, that could be either a school student, that could just be a child in itself. And at the end of the day, it's hard because you got to constantly defend yourself in anything that you do, even in the court
mhm,
system. If you run a traffic stop and you knew that the light was green and this person just all of a sudden came out of nowhere, who's the accuser? Who is in defense here? Who
mhm,
had the light first? So with me, that was how it was when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, I was protecting my mindset and also being honest in situations. Now, I didn't have the best of the best parents, but they made sure that you told the truth. And something was, if you were accused of something, defend yourself.
mhm,
As I go back to with my sister and I going to the same school, she would be in defense. She would tell me what was going on. I said, "Okay, are you sure you didn't provoke this person?" And I would go step to that person and make sure that they weren't messing with my sister. So in defense, I made sure that my sister was okay and wasn't being antagonized by someone else. As an adult now, I still do that, but I do it differently. I
mhm,
defend myself as a human being going into the common workplace to make sure that I'm doing my job diligently and effortlessly. And anything that arises, I defend myself and I show proof. To this day and age, you have to show proof on what's going on and how things are being sought out because someone can sit up here and say, "Well, I did this and she didn't do it." Well, wait a minute. I'm gonna defend myself because I know I finished something and you asked me for it. Here's my report. Here's my synopsis. Here's the time frame. I'm going to defend myself with receipts, with documents to show proof that this was done in the aspect that I had it prepared for. Like I said, you're going to have your managers, you're going to have your employees that you work with try to provoke you. But in a defense that you have to be in defense, you have to make sure that you have your ducks in order. And that's me.
mhm,
I have to come with uh the guidance of me having to make sure I have everything in order. Make sure you're well organized. I'm very organized when it comes to having to defend myself in any type of measurements. And like I said, that can either go with the workforce, law enforcement, and my children. My children, they'll tell me, "Well, mom, I didn't do it. Mom, this wasn't here." Well, why is there popcorn wrappers all on the floor? Who had the popcorn? Nori did, Omari did. So I'm smelling breath at this point to see which one ate the popcorn to make sure that they're telling me the truth. So Nori will tend to be, well, he's more of my defense kid. "Well, mom, I'm telling you, I really didn't do it. It was Omari. It was Omari." Okay. All right. "Omari, are you sure that you didn't do it?" "Mom, he did it." So it's always the pointing of the fingers who does what. So I can manage that on a child aspect, but when it becomes an adult aspect on how to defend yourself, you have to look at all avenues of things. And when it comes to looking at all avenues, a lot of people have evidence. A lot of people have exhibits. A lot of people can basically go to it, guide you, and show you where the evidence is. And that's in today's society as a whole. It's not necessarily who are you defending for and who are you defending
Mhm.
to. It's how you navigate to defend as a whole.
Mhm. Yeah, that's right on point because when you were saying that, it made me think about a previous episode I did with one of my friends, and she referenced me as passively aggressive. We were talking about how if a person's rude and doesn't say excuse me, and how we might stand there waiting for
Mhm.
them to say excuse me. And I bring that up because I will BCC people on emails all the
Mhm.
time, work-related emails, because if
Mhm.
I know that I feel like something's in question, or I'll just blind copy myself on an
Mhm.
email if I feel, even if I'm not certain that it might be something that comes up. I said, "You know what? I want a record of this because somehow it could be, lost in
Mhm.
technology, in the
Right.
world of technology, and I can't find the send on it.
Mhm.
So I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna blind carbon copy myself, and there have been times when it's come in handy where there is
Mhm.
someone who is being aggressive, and now I can defend myself in using this information that I
Mhm.
have, I mean, I think that also, like, when you were bringing up just having to defend yourself and have basically the checks and the receipts.
Mhm.
I think about that for myself, that I don't like to have to be in that position, but I think you're right that a lot of times people are like, "Well, what can you prove? Do you have any proof of this?" I know that
Mhm.
certainly I have so many students who are constantly defending themselves against plagiarism, and I'm like, "I don't wanna
Mhm.
accuse you, but we're gonna have
Right.
to figure out what's going on. We got 100% here. What's going on here?"
Right.
But yes, but I mean, I think that for me, like, with dealing with people who are defensive. I dealt with a lot of people when I was younger who were defensive, but certainly in adulthood as well, family, friends of friends, because usually they're not my friend directly, because then I
Mhm.
probably would just distance myself altogether if I found them to be just too aggressive and too defensive as a person.
Mhm.
And sometimes people in my daily interactions, it happens as well.
Mhm.
And I think the problem, I won't say the problem, but I'll say that the issue I find is sometimes these people don't know that they're being defensive or overly
Mhm.
aggressive. And I don't make it my business to tell them, because then I'm thinking that, will that come across as me being aggressive if I say, you're being a little aggressive right now?
Mhm.
Or why are you being so defensive? Because if
Right.
you ask someone who's being defensive why they're being defensive, do you actually think that's going to make them be less defensive? No, it's going to make them be more defensive. So I usually don't say anything, but what I try to do is I'll try to be kinder to this person. And my hope
Mhm.
is that maybe they'll be a little less defensive, because
Mhm.
like I said before, I don't really want to waste my energy. So we have such little time on this earth, and I don't want to use it getting into negative confrontations, dealing with overly aggressive behavior and defensive people. I mean, we're going to have to at some point, but
Right.
as you mentioned a few times, if I can de-escalate that, if I can diffuse the situation by just being kind and then move on, then that's certainly what I'm going to try to do. So,
Mhm.
but
Exactly.
okay. Yeah, so I'm sure you may have heard the idiomatic expression before, their bark is worse than their bite. But
Mhm.
I often wonder why some people feel the need to bark to begin with, just at everybody. And
Mhm.
then it's like they leave people trying to assuage them or smooth them over to get to that gentle side. What do you
Right.
think makes some people just ready to attack at all times? Like they are and we're not even just talking about defensive people necessarily, just someone who's just ready to bark out and they're on the attack all the time.
Because you got about a lot of he sayers, naysayers. And when those people hear from other people like, "Oh, your girl said this and your boy said that." The girl, did you see this post on social media?
Mm,
And it gets you so hot-headed to when you finally see this person that all these other people have negative impact on you, that's when your aggression gets so high because you're listening to other people instead of the source. And when you don't hear it from the source, that will anger a person. That will have that person animosity and angerment towards you up on high when they see you. So a lot of people will say, well, yeah, it's sight on scene. Or yeah, she's all bark and no bite. Well, that meaning is you can say all of this nature to someone else, but when you physically see me, you have nothing to say. You're not going
Mhm.
to fight me. You're not going to do anything. And that's a sign of intimidation. So for me, for instance, if I've got an issue with somebody else and I'm hearing it from 10 plus people, it might be true, it might not be true. But I want to physically ask the person that even encountered the issue, that spoke it out in the first place. What was your reason on saying something like that? Why would you tell so and so? That's when you don't get a response or you do, and that's when that person is in a defense mode because now they're going to prove to you, "Oh, I didn't say that. She's telling you a story." Well, when did they say this to you? It's always two sides to a story. And when you
Mhm.
hear the source of when all of these other people were saying something negative about you and you finally see this person and that person said, "I never said that. I never mentioned any of that to her. What is she talking about?" They want for you to clash. They want for you to bicker and bite and crawl at that person's face and tear this person wig off and destroy your likelihood of someone. It's a non-factor. And being now from when we've grown up, technology wasn't all that. Our technology was riding on our bike before dusk and you went to somebody's house. Now it's cyberbullying, it's cyber confrontation. Where does she live at? Oh, she's trying to hide, or he trying to hide, so on and so forth. And when you have that type of mentality of barking and then physical altercation, where do you go? Like, what
Mhm.
did you accomplish there? You didn't accomplish much. And that to me shows that you haven't grown your old ways. You're listening to the naysayers and the naysayers is waiting for you to provoke that person so that way they can feel better that you took the bait and you got to this person. But if you listen to both sides, okay, you heard what the naysayers say. Now see if you can reach this person and say, "Hey, I'm hearing some things and I don't think it's true and I don't think that that's you, but can we, have a conversation? Can we talk to see if this is really relevant? And if so, I just want to know why." That's how certain people should be. But in
Mhm.
today's society, that's not happening. That's not happening at all. And to me, I try to teach my kids to don't do that. Don't be hearing what other people are saying about you and then you see that person and you just want to fight and not speak because you never know what that person may have. And it could be any type of instruments. Words are thicker. Words are not even that it's intimidating. It can intimidate you, yes. It can hurt you, yes. But it doesn't make you feel less than of a person. And words can make people feel as such. But if you
Mhm.
know that you are strong willed and have that power to ignore and know that you didn't say those things and that you have truth and you know what those truths are, if you can positively show that person and defend yourself, why not? Some people will be happy. I'm glad you came to me and talked to me about it because I
Mhm.
didn't even know that they were saying anything like that. Well, girl, they is. So, so you pretty much want to make sure that you clear the air. And I say that a lot. Clear the air before you just try to throw your fist up and bruise
Mhm.
somebody's face.
I like that you said that because even in just speaking with someone, it makes me think about, like I was saying before in the beginning, dog language that
Mhm.
most dogs, they're not speaking. I mean, except the fluent pet buttons. We have a few for Zach and he can tell us he wants to go outside and things. But
Mhm.
humans, we can actually speak. We can tell you what's going on with us, or at least let's say most of us can, because sometimes, there are people who might have some learning differences and they're not able to. But overall, uh, I think that people can, but I consider when we talk about speaking, I consider yelling like you talk about someone saying, "You said this and said that."
Mhm.
I consider yelling, and I'm not talking about when you're excited, but that angry, frustrated yelling.
Mhm.
And to me, it's a feeling of barking. It's a form of
Mhm.
barking.
Mhm.
Especially when it's incessant. And so I'll
Right.
admit that I do not like yelling, and it is a trigger for me, and it impacts me. It impacts my emotional state if someone's yelling at me. So
Mhm.
I don't like yelling at others, and I'm not gonna act like I've never have. There's some times when maybe I've gotten upset. It doesn't happen often. Most people who know me, they're like, "I've never seen you yell at anyone."
Right.
Um, I don't like you don't ever really hear me yelling at anyone like that. But I did
Mhm.
some research and I found that it says a raised voice, it can trigger our threat system. And
Mhm.
by doing so, that it brings us to this level where it's the fight, flight, or freeze state. And so
Mhm.
I'm wondering for you, I talked a little about myself, like, and how I don't like it. How do you feel when people yell at you? And like I said, we're not talking about excitement or you're having fun at a party. You're like, "Hey, girl." We're
Right.
not talking about that yelling.
Right. No. When I've had several instances, and like I said, you don't know what people are going through in any situation. I've got yelled at, and I probably didn't do anything wrong. They just wanted to yell. Okay. Well, excuse me, Miss Ma'am, I didn't do it. But if you could bring it down a notch. And I said, well, what's going on? What happened? Well, they did this and they did that. Now, being in the business of customer service, you're going to get a lot of that. You're going to get a lot of mixed personalities. And you got to be able to put how you navigate to the side to deal with each and every one differently. Everyone is not the same. I am not the same. For me at home, I can tell my kids, don't do this, sit down, please pick this up, please clean up Iggy's dog poop. And I can say it as calm as I can. And you got kids today. Oh, well, mom, I get it. I'm in a tablet. I'm playing this game right now with Omari. Okay, but I asked you to do something. And I can say it as calmly as I can until I've seen it after an hour that I've said it. And now I'm in yell mode because I said it to you calmly. And now I've went to ask you again, and you're telling me I'm gonna do it when it's time for me to do it. That's not what I asked you. And now I see it again, still there hours later. Now I'm frustrated. So my frustration turns into yelling. And the yelling has to be, didn't I tell you to pick this up? I told you to pick this up a few hours ago and you didn't do it now. And I'm sitting up here having to do it. But I'm trying to steer away from that because yelling does hurt. Yelling does take a toll on your body. So when you tell a child, I asked you to pick this up, you didn't pick it up in time. I asked you to clean your room, you didn't do this. It's hours later. And then, as our parents used to do, okay, don't worry about it. I got it. You now take that into consideration of doing it to prevent yourself from getting argumentative and yelling at that point. But you know when someone's going to want something from you. And when they want something from you, well, that's when you can put back in their face. Well, I asked you to do this a few hours ago and I ended up having to do it. And I don't think what you're asking me right now is feasible to do it for you. A lot of people don't like that. And that's not just a motherly instance to my children aspect. That's actually, in real life as well. Sorry, sir, but I tried to work with you to accommodate you, but the way that your temperament is right now, I'm sorry that I cannot help this with you. I'm going to bring it to a supervisor or have my lead review it. That's then the smart way for not only just a mom and to their children, but also to the employee and the workplace and the customer service that you deal with on a daily basis. That typically happens. So when you have someone yelling, you don't want to get to their level to yell
Mhm.
also. Because if you do, what's the outcome? Nothing. Nothing. There's no outcome. But if you resolve it on your end and not give them that same energy, they're apologetic. They're like, I'm sorry I had a bad day. I didn't mean to yell at you because you don't know what someone's going through that day. There's different types. There's different types of environments of yelling. I yell at my kids when they don't listen to me, and I done told them 10, 12, 15 to 50 times, do something. I now try to divert from yelling to say, okay, don't worry about it. I'll take
Mhm.
care of it. And then that's when
We
they'll be
know what
like,
that
well,
means.
yeah. Then that's when they're like, oh wait, I better do this. Oh, right, mom, I'll take the trash out. Mama took the dog out. Oh, okay. I have to ask you this time. But
Mhm.
let it happen if it's not consistent and you constantly keep yelling, that will divert somebody to actually listen to you. You're not physically being able to be listened to because you're yelling. So if you do something that they didn't expect for you to do, and that's when you told them so many times, and they just did not do it, and you take on and just do it yourself. Oh my god, my mom did it already. What's gonna happen to me now, you know?
Mm.
They're scared. They're scared. Like, with children, it's different. With people outside of society, it's different. When it's dogs that are having an argument, and we've seen some pets that will have an argument, they'll diffuse that. They'll go back to sniffing, rears of another animal,
Mhm.
or they're
Yes.
happy that they're outside walking, and it's like, okay, we're golden. And then there's we got dog parks now. With dog parks, all the dogs are out. They're not cooped up in the house in the snow. They're good. So
Mhm.
once they're out there just laughing around, I would say dogs laugh around because they're barking so much. It's a
Mhm.
good it's a good environment, just like kids. You take kids to the park, they're having fun. They don't want to go back home. They've been cooped up in the house all winter. So when you take them out to different places and different avenues, when you don't yell as such and you just say, okay, it may be me, or I might just be the one that's just having a bad day. You don't want to give that type of energy off to your children, to the workforce, and for our dogs. Our dogs can feel that. They're not human, but
Yes.
they sense human
Yes.
energy. So you just want to
Yes.
be mindful in that as well.
I definitely agree with that, and just the point you made with the dogs is right on target because
Hmm.
even sometimes their bark sounds like they're talking like, "Bark," like I know exactly like, "Bark, bark, bark," like when and it's like he's arguing with me about something because I
Yes.
want that food. You know I wanted
Hmm.
that. So,
Hmm.
but just like you were saying, that comparison with dogs and children and humans that
Hmm.
we have some dogs who get a bad rap of being aggressive
Hmm.
and barking incessantly, just like we get some humans that get a bad rep for being
Mhm.
aggressive and yelling incessantly. So, but I have one last question just for fun.
Sure.
So, if you were a dog, what
Mhm.
breed would you be and why?
I would be a poodle.
Ah.
I would be a poodle. The reason why I would be a poodle is because their attention span around everyone, especially with children. They are
Mhm.
very protective with children. And they're fun. Their hair, you put like little bows on them. You can't put barrettes on them, but you put like little bows on them, the little collars. So we used to watch the 101 Dalmatians, and it was always the little Dalmatians, but they had the little one where she would strut her stuff in the movie, and that was my favorite dog. My mom had a white poodle. Her name was Jasmine, and we were like, oh my god, hey Jasmine, and she was so fun. She loved that dog. She had, like, these little pink collars and stuff for her little bows, and when she would go to the PetSmart to get cleaned up, she would just step and whatnot. I remember my mom had the dog's hands, her little toes painted and whatnot, and she was cute. So, it was normally like a family dog, but me
Mhm.
personally, that's who I would be. I've had my fair share of dogs. I've had some pit bulls. I now have a Shih Tzu, Iggy. So we have our little boy
Oh.
Iggy, and he's right along with the other 2 playing around, so yeah. If I had Jasmine or another poodle, that's who I would be, and that's who I would like to have as another dog.
Yeah, I definitely love Zach. I mean, you got your standard miniature, and Zach is a toy poodle, but yeah, I love them all.
Yes.
Now I know we don't get to see each other as often, but I'm
Mhm.
still going to ask you, what dog breed do you think I would be? And
Hmm. I'm not gonna say a Cocker Spaniel. I'm not gonna say that. Mm, hmm. Get back with that one.
oh,
I got my fair share ones, but not the ones that kinda, like, fit you.
mhm. And it's funny because a lot of previous guests actually said a poodle for me. So when you said a poodle for yourself, they either said a poodle or a golden retriever. So which
Oh,
I like
okay.
golden retrievers. So yeah, they said because 'cause you're
Yeah.
really friendly with everybody. So I said,
Yeah,
"I
but
like
I would
that."
say
Yeah.
like a small like a puppy because
Yeah.
you don't like
Oh!
that's what I'm saying. I can't say like
Mhm.
a physical one, but I would say like a
Mhm.
new breeder because you're innocent,
Mm.
and by you being so innocent, if you were just born, you're so innocent to the world. You're with your mom and your mom, she's breastfeeding and you're like running around with your mom with all the other siblings. So I would say you will be a newborn to a
Oh.
breed. To which breed, I'm not sure, but
Mhm.
I would say that.
That I like that. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Trina.
Sure,
This was awesome. I'm so glad we got to get together in this way, and
sure.
I hope none of my questions came across as me barking orders. I had to throw that
Oh
pun in there.
no. Oh no. I'm the one that's barking those orders to my kids all the time.
But to you, the listener, I hope our conversation has you thinking about when and if you should react to the barks of others. And now I'm not barking orders at you as the listener, but I do hope that you will share this episode with your friends and family. And while you're
Oh,
at it,
definitely.
follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Tricks My Dog Taught Me. Until next time, when I get into week 14's poem, A Little Tug, here's something to ponder inspired by my little guy, Zach the Toy Poodle. Some barks come from buddies, while others hail from rivals. Yet remember, not every bark is a battle cry. So take a moment before you unleash your own. Take care, and I'll see you next time.